Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, April 6th. It's a little quarter after 10. Um, we I thought we would talk about the bills that we have in committee and start making plans to getting some of those, done and kicked out. Um, we have a witness coming at 11. Diane Bosfelt's going to come in, and the finance director for the ag agency are going to come in and present their budget and that go through that with us. So do you guys have any preference on like putting we have two current use bills, maybe putting them together if at all possible and moving those, we'll have to see if there's any witnesses out there, if anybody wants to testify, and have Michael with us, no, we don't really. We'll have Abby Shepherd with us to go through the legal part of that. But I believe the tax department proposed both of those changes in there, so we'll have them in tomorrow. We haven't talked a lot, but we've heard quite a bit on the raw milk bill. And there's some more witnesses that want to come in and talk to us in regards to that. We've got the innovation change, the board. There's some more people that want to come in and testify on that. Plus, there's a gentleman from East Montpelier, I think he's from, that's been in before that he wants to have a little time before the committee. The guy that used to work, I believe he worked for the Agency of Ag. And he'd like to come in and present his thoughts about the whole issue. And so we'll probably have him in later in the week or so we can hear from him anyways in regards to what his thoughts are. Maybe next week, we can mark that bill up and get it out. The other thing that we need to chat about is I noticed the fairs, Jackie Folsom has sent out a request or sent a request to appropriations about getting some of the federal money to help the fairs this year. And we haven't talked in approps at all about whether, we were gonna hand any of that money out like we did last year. Of course, the rules and the regs aren't going to be done on that until the end of the month, they claim, late April. And if we're going home the second week in May, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have to talk about that in caucus or something to figure out if we're just going to sit on that, let the governor deal with it. If we're going to come back later in the summer, but if they're expecting to pump some of that money out, we should be thinking about if we need some of that for, for the farms or how we're gonna do it at least. Have any of you heard anything about that money?
Not
No,
really, no.
Just, I gather the governor's coming out with a proposal today. So, in some broad strokes. So I'm assuming, yeah, and the House started putting some fences around it in the budget, right, Mr. Chair?
a little, yeah.
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 So I'm assuming, what I understand, I don't have a clue about the timeline, but I understand that, committees of jurisdiction are expected to help. I'm hoping you and approps will create some parameters that we would then work within, but I don't know more than that.
No,
Yeah,
and
The plan is coming out today. I don't know how much, it'll be good. I think there'll be a lot of discussion about it. It's
so,
about as much as I'm probably comfortable willing to share.
yeah, you don't dare to share any. It's so bad you don't even dare to share it with us.
No, I think it's great, but I let the
Oh.
governor sell it before I have to. I think there'll be opportunity for us, though. I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything surprising. I think we know money wants, how money. Think of like what the towns have been told on how they can spend their money, broadband, water. Stormwater is going to be part of it. So
Yeah,
I can think that's where we potentially could help the fairs with this 3-acre permitting stuff, and maybe help them with relief there.
well, and I got a request from, if we get onto the 3-acre rule, the small sawmills would, they've got a lot of big roofs on their lumber places and things, and they've asked about looking at the problems they're facing with the 3-acre rule as well. And of course, our universal meals bills down in education, and I hope that Brian's gonna be kicking that out, this week.
It's on their agenda today, Bobby.
Yeah, he said that he was gonna get onto it, and I don't know where he's gonna go with it, whether he's gonna try to incorporate Jane's proposal into it, or run with the regular universal meals program. But it's too bad we ran into the superintendents, and that crew ran us into the wall with their complaints, because to really maximize the benefits for everybody, you should do the universal meals program. And I mean, Jane's thing, there's 16,000 more kids, but a lot of those kids are already on. We never did get it separated out from, from how many of those children are already mixed up and getting the free meals. There should, I haven't got a clue what, but it's a $10 million, roughly, it was projected to cost 10 million with doing the Dr. Dinosaur proposal. Well, hell's all we were looking for is 5 a year for, of course, 5 years, but so we've got that deal too, that we need to stay well abreast of. Have any of you heard anything about the childcare bill?
No,
You talk about, some money. There's some big holes there that would take a lot of, I think more than universal meals program. If we bump that up to, they want to have salaries up around for early child care teacher provider, up to 50 grand. They want to have a college repayment part in that bill. There's, families up way up in, up high in the standings, up over 100,000 you could earn and still get help with childcare if you had enough children. I know it's very much needed, but I don't know where the heck all that money's gonna come from in 3 or 4 years. I mean, our economy, we better get it primed to go good with this federal money, or we're gonna have a lot of empty pockets and when that runs out.
It's so tricky because these workforce issues are very real, but they are sort of across the board, and
yeah,
we get some opportunity to focus on one or two at a time, and it's frustrating.
I didn't know if we could move some of the teachers that we have, where we have too many in our public schools, move them, give them some money to go back to school to get a refresher in early childhood education and blend them into the lower age children.
Well, I think you've got to stop looking at childcare, pre-K 12 and higher ed as three different silos. I think once we look at as one system, we can find efficiencies in that system. And we're spending over $2 billion across that system. Can we develop a better system with $2 billion? I don't know if we can, but we just haven't been willing to have that conversation.
No, our numbers keep going down. If you added all those numbers of the together, I doubt if you'd get to the 120,000 that we used to run through the public school system, K through 12.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the argument I've always made. I was in middle school at that peak, at that 105,000 peak. That was, people like me, my kids will be going with 70,000 kids.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, our colleges aren't running the numbers there that we used to have, and like the state colleges, I'm even wondering if you should do a preschool through 16, is it? We talked about that years back. I'm sure, Chris, you've been around since we talked about a K-16 plan. And, that would, you might want to stretch your numbers to 16, Corey.
Well, that's what I mean, but and the other thing too, by looking at it as one system, you can change the calculus, because I joke with my wife all the time. We don't live close enough to when we're not in Chittenden County, but we'd actually save money, when my son goes to kindergarten. If we were to send him to a private school, it'd be cheaper than daycare. You can go to the private schools in Chittenden County for like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year. I pay $12,000 a year for childcare now. About $1,000 a month, a little $265 a week, so more than $12,000.
For one?
for one. But it includes meals, and it's a
year round.
and it's year round, and it's a staff. So we had a cheaper option before, but if the lady got sick, my wife or I had to stay home, or there was times when I was on Chris Spray's committee that I'd be like, I'll be in at noon because I got to take the morning with a kid while my wife is going to take the afternoon, so I don't miss a full day. Now there's enough staff that he goes every day, unless last week he was out because there was a COVID incident.
Well,
but that's different.
do legislators get subsidized for free childcare?
No, I pay all of it.
Yeah, we were paying at our peak when we had 2 in there, $1,300 a month. I mean, it was
Yeah.
wicked.
Well,
It's like a mortgage. It's like a holding mortgage.
if we
Oh,
put if we have another child and put them in the same facility under 2, they're $300 a week. So we would go to $565 a week at that facility. I mean,
that's crazy.
you
No,
got to make
that-
about $900. You got to make $800-900 a week, after taxes to pay that piece.
And in our child care center, that one of our favorite teachers left because she could make more money bussing tables.
Is
And
that,
that's just the sick reality of it. And it is, so the workforce issues are very real, and the pay is, it's a squeeze on the parents, it's a squeeze on the workers.
Well, what I find interesting, and my sister-in-law is a middle school teacher, and she's younger, just getting, just starting out in her career, but looking for something to do in the summer. And she's been reaching out she has a degree in early childhood, and she's been reaching out to centers to even just fill in for the summer while people are on vacation, is willing to make less, obviously, than she does teaching, but to provide some income in the summer. So I wonder if there's even like a program to incentivize that. I know it wouldn't be like year round, but, as kids kind of float out of, school, but are still too young to really be home alone, or their school teachers that are looking to pay off their college debt and other things, like a program to pay them, to help out in the summers.
So this
You
is something
guys-
I've wondered about for a long time. And I don't have a kid in the school system anymore, so I don't have a dog in the fight. If it's so expensive to send kids to daycare, and the people that work there make like minimum wage or less, where in the heck does all the money go?
What I'm
Well,
hearing my center actually has 4 locations. They have 2 in Chittenden County. They just opened up down there as well. They have, with that many, they actually have a couple staff people who just keep up with state regulations, like their full-time job. So, they're paying somebody, let's call it $50,000 split among 4 centers. They're paying $1,000 a month for someone just to manage regulation needs with the state, and other pieces. And, there's, you have those costs as well.
It always seems to me
and
the
they-
people that were running the show were keeping all the money. If they didn't give their employees a very good pay, I just don't understand where the money goes.
Well, don't forget that it's tiny ratios, right? When you're under 2 or something, you can only have
like 4 kids.
Right. So,
yeah. And
so
when
we
you're
have
really
this-
young, when they're still in, you can have 2. And I remember being stunned to learn that we were paying full freight at our childcare center, but it wasn't covering costs for our kids. Like, they were fundraising and dealing with philanthropy. And in our case, my spouse is a teacher. And so when we were shifting to kindergarten, for example, we took them out in July and August. And that was a total blow. They couldn't fill that slot for a month and a half, but we were like, look, as soon as I can stop paying $1,300 a month, I've got to do that.
Yeah.
And, so little things like that, like they just eat that. And
but you're right. So like my kid, they're allowed 5 kids per 1 adult. And so if you do it at the $265 a week, if they're all, that's the rate, that's $1,300 they're pulling in per employee a week. I think they pay a little more than minimum wage, but I'm sure they're only in that $13, $14, $15, but you do, let's call it 15 with benefits adding up to at 40 hours, that's 600 of that's gone just to the staff. Then you have to pay the person who's managing regulation. If there's one kid missing like Chris said, if there's an opening in the classroom, you have to account for that. Then you have to pay your rent and your other bills. There's probably not
Well,
that much per kid
Insurance,
left over.
Food. You got a food director of
Yeah.
some kind. You know, just
the other thing that people are forgetting, that you don't ever hear we talk about it. You send a kid to the kindergarten or first grade, we are paying about $21,000 a year, average throughout the system. So if you guys are only paying 10 or 12, there's $8,000 difference between what a first grader or school gets subsidized for the first grader than the preschool does when they call Chris or Corey to get how much it's going to be. And I know when Eric's children got old enough to, where they had to have Carlene started, his wife, he was complaining about what it was going to cost. And I said, well, screw that. We'll have Carlene stay home and look after her own children. And we'll just take her salary that she was getting working out, and we'll add it to your salary through the company. And so she got to stay home and raise her own children. And, they did as well as going to the daycare places. And Eric, I kept him home as long as I could. I mean, he was 7 years old when he started first grade. He'd go down to the farm, and I'm sure he learned, taking care of animals and being around the equipment. And I mean, he learned very well. And
Well, that's how I think I became a politician. My dad delivered Little Debbie snack cakes everywhere from St. Albans to Richford, Milton to Richford, my whole childhood. And so once I got school age on breaks, I just get thrown in the truck with dad, and I'd hit every quick stop every week. So I just started talking to all the coffee crowds at 5, 6, 7 years old, and they all watched me grow up.
so you were campaigning way back then. Yeah, that's cheating.
I wasn't at the time, but I was out listening, and I used to have to read the newspaper, so I had something to talk to the guys about in the store. So that's how I got into reading the issues. And yeah, I always joke that's how it started, whether it was Weatherby's there in Richford or Uncle Floyd's in Enosburg, all those places.
handing out little
Yeah.
Debbie's as a 7-year-old.
Well,
Counting
my
on
dad
both.
he just retired from the Little Debbie thing in December, but his delivery truck, I stickered it up with my campaign signs. When he was making deliveries, everyone, even when after I got elected, they'd talk to him about issues, and he'd call me with reports from the stores.
But our children, if you look at the stats, our children aren't doing that well as far as education. I don't know if we've talked about it, but down in the other room, we have, half of our third graders are not proficient in reading. Well, golly, some of those little tots have been going to daycare and school since they were babies, and they still can't. I mean, I don't know what goes on, but we need to change the system. That's for sure. Hey, is there anything else that we needed to just talk in general about? I almost brought it up when we were on the floor about our caucus at noon today. Did you Republicans get invited to that, or have you had that presentation on the pension plan and all that?
Who's giving the presentation, Bobby?
Guy from Joint Fiscal, I believe.
Well, we had
We
three things at noon, but it wasn't a Republican thing or a caucus. It was anybody could go to it kind of thing. I thought that guy was really good. I don't know if he was from Joint Fiscal. He was really young, but he
Yeah,
explained.
it's the same guy.
It is?
It's the same
Okay.
guy, yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
you-
I've already seen it.
Oh, so you've covered it then?
Yeah, yeah.
Because last week when we talked about having him come, I thought we talked about having it for all of us, because we're all in that mess too together. Did you see though, finally this week, they came out with a lot of the problem was the poor returns on their investments. Oh, I'm telling you, every year when the treasurer comes over to appropriations, we talk about that. And I'm the one that, of course, brings it up. And
I want to know how she manages it, because honestly, the last 10 years, you should have been getting 7-8% returns. If you literally
7 or 8, if you
I
have
know, but she
$10
didn't.
million, hell, you should be able to get real money for that kind of money.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago when I first got elected to the Senate, the governor called us in to talk about some concerns about pensions, and we brought it up a little bit, but the majority didn't quite want to talk about it yet. But at the time, it was like 2017. The prior year, the stock market did 21%, and we didn't even hit our 7% return. You're sitting there going, "How are we underperforming that much?" And I think people overthink investing, especially with large funds like that. You just need to hit market performance, and maybe a little more conservative with like a 70-30 split. But I'm on the finance committee at our hospital with we have a small endowment, nothing huge, but the last people, similar situation, they overcomplicate the investing strategy, and you make it too complicated. And I'm sure they're paying outrageous fees. I don't know what we're paying for fees, but I bet that there should be analysis there. We shouldn't pay more than 0.5% in fees across the whole thing. Especially that's high even for that size portfolio. But and then you look at liquidity issues, like I'm sure we have offshore investments. They don't really make sense for a pension fund.
Well,
Mark the date, Mr. Chair. This is twice now. I'm completely agreeing with Sarah Parent.
well,
Well,
I mean, hell, if you can add and subtract just a little bit, I mean, you haven't even got to be a rocket scientist, and you can scratch your head and say, where's the money? Where's they're getting 2-3%. I mean,
Well,
somebody's stealing all the money.
I don't talk about it much, but I interned and had my first job out of college at Goldman Sachs in New York City. I was on the municipal bond team. But during my internships, I was on the rates desk and others. So we worked with these pension funds, CalPERS, Ontario Teacher Pensions. Like we worked with them, but they weren't paying anywhere. I mean, they were big enough to have their own staff do their trading and stuff, but I bet their fees, considering their size portfolios, but it almost is the KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? And like keep investments there and the fees low, because that's where a lot of people lose, is they pay high fees and they lose that return. Because if you're paying a point or two, even if you're hitting the market, you're not exceeding the market because of the fee structure. So it's frustrating to watch my side.
I keep bringing up in approach that, well, not keep, but every now and then I'll say to Jane, we ought to be looking at how much, we got what, 1.2 billion from the feds. Well, that money didn't get all spent in one day. So I brought it up to Jane several times. Maybe it's not many, but several times. Well, how much interest did we make off from that 1.2 billion while we were hanging on to it to go to ag or to go here or to go there? Well, I don't really know, but I bet it was a lot. Well, that doesn't cut it for me. I want to know, we make $1,000, $100,000, or no bucks? But you can't get answers. And when the treasurer come in, I asked her the same question. And I don't know if you've ever had conversations with the treasurer, but she doesn't even slow down to take in air. I mean, it's constant words and
The filibuster.
you never get the answer.
It's a filibuster. And you know who made the money is TD Bank, right?
Well, somebody made tons of money because with that kind of dollars, you can get some good returns.
Well, and that's, I mean, with that kind of money, we should, I mean, realistically, like a 70-30 split where we're in some kind of, honestly, a market, hitting, it's me and my retirement that isn't pension related because I get one through my current job, but my old 401k, I look for the lowest fees and the one that tracks the market the most. Like, I'm not trying to outsmart the market. That was, in finance, even at Goldman, where a lot of people thought they were smart, the whole goal was over time to meet the market. No one consistently can beat the market year over year for 20 years. It's
no
law of averages. It's like baseball. You all refer to the mean. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you look at diversity and you have your ups and downs, but
I think I'm hopeful that now we've got a little bit of time, it seems like, that we can get this kind of analysis and not just be dependent on the treasurer. And I mean, I sent an op-ed around that was written by a guy who helps a bunch of union investors for their pensions. And it's to your point, Corey, if we had invested in indexes, we'd have $1.5 billion more over the last decade. I mean, it's real money. It's like that closes the gap. That doesn't eliminate the problem, but it shrinks the problem by half.
Well, it's compound interest. It's what I explained we don't teach it enough in schools, the power of early. So the old saying is, and people don't realize this, if you could save $100,000 in your retirement from age 22 to 30 and stop putting money away, and then you put the same amount of money over the rest of your career, you retire at 60 with the same amount of money. The early years are so important because of that compounding. It's similar with this. You just can't catch up with it once it's gone.
Of course, I always plan. I never planned to work for anybody else. I always figured that I was a good enough worker, and smart enough so I could fend for myself and pay my own way. And so, talking about retirement, I had to figure out my own system. And playing with money has always been kind of a good game to play if you use your head a little bit. Hey, do you guys want to take a quick break before Diane starts?
Sure.
Yeah. So why don't we hop off and she's coming on at 11. So a couple